In 1925, a group of executives made a secret decision. They had a product that worked too well. Their light bulbs were lasting over 2,000 hours. Customers were buying them, and then never needing to buy another one. So the executives did something that changed modern economic history. They deliberately engineered their product to fail. By 1925, the Phoebus Cartel, a secret alliance between General Electric, Philips, Osram, and the other major bulb manufacturers, had quietly agreed to cut the lifespan of every light bulb sold in the world to 1,000 hours. Not because they couldn't make better bulbs, because a satisfied customer is a customer who stops spending. And a customer who stops spending is a problem for an economy that needs you to keep going. Here's the thing most people never stop to ask. What if the feeling that you never have enough, that nagging sense that something is always missing, isn't a personal flaw? What if it's a feature? Think about the last time you felt genuinely content with what you had. Not for long, right? A new phone comes out and suddenly the one in your hand feels old. Your neighbor buys a car and something shifts in how you see yours. You get a raise, feel good for a month, and then the number just becomes normal. This experience is so universal, it has a name in economics: the hedonic treadmill. You run. The ground moves with you. You end up exactly where you started. And the strange thing is, by almost every objective measure, Americans today are far wealthier than previous generations. More square footage per person, more cars, more devices, more options than any human civilization has ever had. And yet, surveys consistently show that fewer than 1 in 3 Americans describe themselves as financially satisfied. We have more, and we feel like we have less. That gap between what we own and how we feel about it is not an accident. It is the operating system of the modern economy. Here is the uncomfortable truth buried inside the structure of modern capitalism. The United States economy depends on consumption. Consumer spending accounts for roughly 68% of American GDP. That means without you feeling the need to buy, upgrade, replace, and want more, the economy doesn't grow. A satisfied society is, technically, an economic problem. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is openly discussed in business schools, in marketing textbooks, and in boardrooms. The goal of the modern economy is not to give you what you need. It is to continuously redefine what you need. And the more you understand the mechanics of how that works, the harder it becomes to unsee it. Meet Jake. Jake is 34 years old. He lives in Phoenix, Arizona. By his own account, he's doing pretty well. He earns $78,000 a year, more than his parents ever made at his age. He has a decent apartment, a 2-year-old car, and a phone that still works fine. And yet Jake has this constant feeling that he is behind. Behind on savings, behind on his career, behind on life somehow. He upgraded his phone last year, not because it broke, but because the new model came out and he suddenly felt inadequate. He started a streaming subscription he rarely uses because canceling it felt like falling further behind culture. He bought a couch he couldn't quite afford because his friend's apartment looked better than his. Jake is not careless with money. He's not stupid. He's living inside a system that has been carefully engineered to make him feel exactly this way. Not by accident, with enormous precision. Because Jake's dissatisfaction is worth billions of dollars to the companies that have learned to manufacture it. Here is the first hidden rule. The economy is not designed to satisfy you. It is designed to move the goalpost. The Phoebus Cartel's light bulb strategy was just the beginning. By the 1950s, General Motors had elevated this idea into a full corporate philosophy. Their head of design, Harley Earl, pioneered what he called dynamic obsolescence. Every year, GM would release a new car model, not because the engineering was significantly better, but because it looked different. The strategy was explicit. Make last year's car feel culturally outdated so customers would feel embarrassed driving it. It worked. Car ownership cycles shortened dramatically. People began replacing cars that ran perfectly because the new one had fins and chrome, and the old one suddenly felt embarrassing. The product hadn't failed. Their satisfaction had been engineered to fail instead. This spread everywhere. Fashion moved from seasonal to weekly cycles. Technology companies began releasing annual updates with incremental improvements that made the previous model feel obsolete by design rather than necessity. Apple's vice president of marketing once said internally that their job was not to create products people needed. It was to create products people didn't know they needed yet, and then make them need them. The nylon stocking tells the same story. When DuPont first developed nylon in the late 1930s, they had created a fiber so strong it was nearly indestructible. Women who bought the first nylon stockings reported they lasted for years. DuPont's engineers were then quietly tasked with making them more fragile. The resulting product snagged easily, ran frequently, and needed constant replacement. A durable product had been reverse engineered into a disposable one. Not because anyone asked for that, because durability is the enemy of repeat revenue. The mechanism is more sophisticated now. Software updates slow down older devices. Replacement parts are made exclusive to manufacturers. Repair is made deliberately difficult or more expensive than replacement. The industry term for this is right to repair, and the fact that it requires legislation to force companies to allow customers to fix what they own tells you everything about the default assumption. But the goal is identical to what those executives decided in 1925. Don't build something that lasts. Build something that makes you want more. Here is the second hidden rule. And this one operates inside your mind without your permission. You don't compare yourself to who you were. You compare yourself to who is around you. Economists call this relative deprivation. And it is one of the most powerful and least discussed forces in personal finance. Research consistently finds that people are not unhappy because they have less than they did before. They are unhappy because they have less than the people they can see. A landmark study by Harvard economist Erzo Lutmer found something striking. Holding income constant, people reported lower happiness the higher their neighbors' incomes were. In other words, getting a raise while your neighbor gets a bigger one made people feel worse. Not better. Worse. Absolute wealth barely moved the needle. Relative position moved everything. And the modern economy has weaponized this insight with extraordinary effectiveness. Social media did not invent comparison culture, but it industrialized it. It turned the ancient human instinct to look at your neighbor's house into a continuous, algorithmically curated feed of the nicest houses, the best vacations, the most impressive careers, the happiest families, all from people you know, which makes the comparison feel personal and immediate. Every scroll is a carefully engineered reminder that someone near you has more. Jake isn't feeling behind because he is behind. He's feeling behind because he has been given an infinite reference group of people doing better than him, and no algorithm ever shows him the people doing worse. The economy needs Jake to feel behind, because the moment Jake feels satisfied, he stops spending. And Jake stopping is the one thing the system cannot afford. Now let's look at how this machinery actually works at the structural level. Before the 20th century, most Americans consumed what they needed. They saved more than they spent. Debt was considered shameful. Then something fundamental changed. In the 1920s, a new philosophy entered the business world, largely shaped by Edward Bernays, the man widely considered the father of modern public relations. Bernays understood that the economy had a production problem. Factories were producing far more than people needed. His solution was not to slow production. It was to change what people thought they needed. He ran campaigns that convinced women smoking was a symbol of liberation on behalf of a tobacco company. He convinced Americans that a heavy bacon and eggs breakfast was healthy because a pork industry client wanted to sell more bacon. He didn't sell products. He sold identities. He sold the idea that what you own is who you are. Around the same time, another transformation was quietly happening in American finance. Consumer credit, borrowing money to buy things you couldn't yet afford, had been considered irresponsible for most of American history. Then installment plans arrived. For the first time, ordinary Americans could buy a car, a refrigerator, a washing machine without having the money yet. The barrier between wanting and having collapsed, and the economy never looked back. Today, total American consumer debt stands at over $17 trillion. Credit cards, auto loans, buy now, pay later apps. Each one a different mechanism built on the same foundation. The belief that your current situation is insufficient and that what you need is just one purchase away. The debt is not a sign that the system failed. It is evidence that the system worked exactly as designed. And once that connection was made, once consumption became tied to identity, status, and self-worth, the economy had found an engine that would never run out of fuel. Because identity is infinitely upgradable, there will always be a newer version of who you could be, and the economy will always be there to sell it to you. This is the hidden architecture of modern economic growth, not production of what you need, continuous manufacture of what you feel you lack. Here is the realization that most people never quite reach, because it is the most disorienting of all. The feeling that you're behind, that you're not enough, that one more purchase, one more upgrade, one more achievement will finally close the gap. That feeling is the product, not a side effect of the economy, the product itself. Companies do not accidentally make you feel inadequate. They spend billions of dollars every year in advertising, in product design, in the psychological research that shapes every detail of how things are packaged, priced, and presented to make sure you feel exactly that. The anxiety is manufactured, precisely, at scale. And here is the part that makes this genuinely dark. The system is self-reinforcing. When you feel behind, you spend to catch up. When you spend to catch up, the reference group moves because the economy needs it to move. When the reference group moves, you feel behind again. Jake bought the new couch. He felt good for a few weeks. Then his colleague got a house. And suddenly, the couch didn't feel like progress anymore. There is a concept in psychology called the Diderot effect, named after the 18th century French philosopher Denis Diderot. After Diderot received a beautiful new dressing gown as a gift, he began to feel that everything else in his home was inferior by comparison. One by one, he replaced his furnishings to match the gown. He later wrote about being enslaved by the thing he had acquired. That was 1769. We built an entire economy around it. None of this means that desire is wrong, or that wanting things is a character flaw. The problem is not wanting. The problem is that we are living inside a system that has become extraordinarily sophisticated at making sure you never stop wanting. A system that profits from your dissatisfaction. A system that needs the goalpost to keep moving, because a satisfied population is one that spends less, borrows less, and grows the economy less. The Phoebus cartel engineers who deliberately shortened the life of the light bulb were not evil people. They were operating inside a logic that made a broken product more economically valuable than a lasting one. That logic has only become more refined in the centuries since. Jake is not failing to keep up. He's keeping up perfectly. He's doing exactly what the system needs him to do. He's wanting more. And the quiet, unsettling question that follows is this: at what point does an economy that needs you to feel insufficient become incompatible with a life that feels like enough? That question has no easy answer. But it might be the most important financial question you ever ask yourself. Because the first step to spending differently is understanding that the need you feel was not always yours. It was given to you. Carefully, deliberately, and at great expense. By people who needed you to feel exactly that way.